It's good.
Hello, everyone. My name is Julia Dromareski. I'm a literary translator and a cultural journalist, and I'm very delighted to be tonight or in our guest time this morning in the company of Allison Saft, um, whom I'm very sure you've read and are very excited to meet tonight at this third evening of FestivalYA 2024. I'm here in the company of the lovely persons from Cărturești, who are behind the scenes of FestivalYA each year, as you all know. And if I'm not mistaken, we also have with us Laura, who came from the side of the publishing house of Allison Saft's book, the only one translated so far into Romanian. I hope there will be more of them. So we'll see how this goes. Just before we officially start and I walk you through the rules, so to say, I will first welcome Allison. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation.
Of course. So excited to be here.
Amazing. And as far as I understand, Laura, you'd also like to say maybe a couple of words. I don't know if you'd like to say something about the Romanian version of the book we already have or anything, or if you want to leave it for later, it's your decision.
Yeah, no worries. Just a quick message to say that I really love Allison's books, and I'm so happy that we've been able to publish the first one, and now we're working with the second one. We're very, very excited to publish her in Romania, and we really love how her books are received by our readers, and we keep looking for new books. I've seen news for another one, so yeah, we'll keep publishing her, and we're very, very excited for all future projects.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laura. This was very lovely. I'm also quite excited because Allison got published in Romanian as well, and I dig her books and the covers of her books and the magic of her books and a lot of other things about her books. So, as usual, I'll just walk you through the general rules of our conversation. And we'll ask Allison a couple of warm-up questions until all our participants will be able to join and then to think about their own questions. But then I strongly encourage you guys to ask yourselves whatever you are curious about concerning Allison's books, Allison's career, her hobbies, her interests, or any other curiosities that you might have. And as usual, you can address her directly, which I strongly encourage, case in which I would like you to make a show of hands whenever you want to speak, and I will take care to give you the floor. Or you can ask your questions, say your things, or comment in the chat, and then I will voice them for you. Also, if you have the possibility from a technical point of view, we would very much love to see you as well. So if you can turn on your cameras, that would be very, very much appreciated so that we can actually have a feel that this is going on for real. Right. So this is about the rules. Allison, what sort of books did you like to read as a child?
Oh, I loved talking animal books, honestly. I don't know if y'all read the Warrior Cats series. I think, oh my gosh, those books were everything to me. And that is actually how I started getting into writing, was kind of writing Warrior Cats fan fiction. I was also very into Redwall, just all of the delightful little feast scenes where I don't know. He just had a real talent for writing about food. And I don't know. I want to live in that world so much, just to be a little mouse in a little abbey. Yeah, so I was very much into like animal stories, whimsical stories as a kid. Yeah.
The reason for which I'm going berserk right now is that besides having translated 6 of the Warrior Cat book into Romanian, I also translated both the first and the second Red Wall books. So I'm like, what? Yeah, it's like it just worked like a charm. It's fantastic. To be honest, I mean, with the cats, I've had my fill because there's a huge hysteria in Romania as well with the books. Uh, but with Redwall, which is not as well known in Romania, I'm quite excited because I also love those kind of stories because you know that they're a bit of uh, medieval somehow, and at the same time, the characters are sometimes walking like a thin line between white and black. They're like sort of gray. You don't know exactly who's going to betray who and whatever. And at the same time, they're very cutesy, woodsy little things, and you want to, just cuddle them all. So it's super exciting. I can understand where you're coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those series are oh, sorry, yeah, how fascinating, like the tension between like cute and charming, but also just like really intense. Like Warrior Cats was, whew, I still have the emotional scars from those books.
Yeah, so much drama. It's like sometimes I felt like it's like a soap opera somehow, but with fangs and claws and everything inside. So yeah, pretty much. Right. So you started with talking animals books. Yeah, I really love that description. And so you said you began writing fan fiction. So I'm taking that was your first attempt at writing more or
Pretty much.
less.
Yeah, I really got started. I don't know, do y'all have Neopets in Romania, or did you have Neopets? Yeah, it was like this website. Animals seem to be a theme here, where you had little virtual pets, but they also had these forums where they would host role plays. So I kind
Okay.
of was in forum role play when I was a kid, starting with things like Warrior Cats. But then as I got older, I was really into anime and manga as a teenager. Kind of still am, honestly, but Naruto was like my thing when I was maybe like 15. So most of my writing was role-playing Naruto with my friends online. I was super cool in high school, as you can tell. And it wasn't really until college where I started writing my original work.
Yeah, I don't know if you have this website that you mentioned, but for example, in my time, we had Live Journal, and a lot of us were on Live Journal and role playing there and writing fan fiction there. And then we had the archive or our own when part of Live Journalers moved after certain disagreements with the owners of the original website. So I think we're pretty much coming from the same
Yeah, same era.
yeah, exactly. I'm completely getting you. Right. So in college, you said you started to write more serious things. On the other hand, as far as I know, you studied literature in college, if I'm not mistaken. How was this experience for you, like studying literature?
Yeah, I think I went through a period in college where I decided I would just study literature instead of write it. At the time, it felt very impractical to pursue a creative career, so I figured I would try to do something useful with my hobbies and my passion for reading. And I thought I was going to get a PhD eventually. I did a master's program. But I think later in college, I took a fiction writing workshop with Jesmyn Ward, just kind of on a whim. I was like, I haven't written fiction in years. I have some extra time in my schedule, so I should just, reconnect with fiction writing and see how it goes. And the class was super inspiring, and I started writing this like way too autobiographical young adult novel about a tragic breakup. That one never saw the light of day, for the best. But yeah, I think it was sometime after graduating where I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. I decided that my passion really was in writing rather than analyzing fiction.
And how come did you get to being published, actually? What was the process, if you can share?
Sure. So I was working my first job out of college and after giving up my PhD dreams, and I thought, do I want an MFA? And I thought to myself, no, I don't like writing short stories. They're really hard. And so I spent a lot of time online, during work hours, maybe, kind of researching what it actually took to get a book published. And I found a lot of helpful advice on Reddit. And it was there on a subreddit called Pub Tips, which I think is still running, that they were advertising a mentorship program called Author Mentor Match. And I had like this idea of a book, but nothing written. And I think it was maybe October at the time, and the deadline for applying to this program was in March. So I was like, okay, I got to write my book really fast so I can meet this deadline. And I did manage to do it, and submitted this book to the program and was chosen by C.L. Herman, who also writes fabulous young adult fantasies, if y'all haven't read them. She's great. And she kind of just taught me everything I know. The revision process was grueling, but she held my hand every step of the way and kind of talked me through querying agents, which is a whole can of worms that we can get into if you want. But it was a pretty straightforward process, honestly, with lots of help and tears.
Right. And just to be clear, because I think that we need to recall how many of your books we still have to, uh, lobby for being translated into Romanian. So this was your first book. Was it in 2021 or was it earlier?
Yeah, 2021 is the first one that
Mhm.
came out called Down Comes the Night.
Mm-hmm. And then A Firewall or Magic came out next year.
That's right, yeah.
Exactly. Okay, very good. We have the chronology in check, so we're good. Right, so I'm just going to use this moment to start encouraging our participants to ask their own questions or tell Allison whatever they feel like telling her. As I said, you can either choose to write your questions or comments in chat and I will voice them for you, or you can just raise your hands and I'll give you the floor so that you can interact directly with her. So wherever you feel like. We already have a brave one here. Roxana, please.
Hi, so I've actually been dreaming to ask you this ever since I read the book 2 years ago. And it's been something I've been talking to with all my friends about this, Mariuka in question as well here. Obviously in A Far Wilder Magic, alchemy is very important. It's like the main element that the story revolves around. And I could not help but notice some similarities with Full Metal Alchemist. And then I also noticed in an interview that you mentioned Full Metal Alchemist. And I was wondering if maybe you took inspiration from Roy and Riza for A Far Wilder Magic.
I very much did. Yeah, it never started as fan fiction, but it was kind of like after my first book came out, I was really sad. This is just a common experience for authors, I've learned. Like your first book comes out, your dreams come true, and you're like, what now? So I really needed to figure out how to love writing again. And so I kind of just threw my absolute favorite pieces of media into a blender. And for me, that was Roy and Riza from Full Metal Alchemist and The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater. And a little bit of the setting of Northern California where I live, and the result is A Far Wilder Magic. So yes, good spot on the inspiration.
I was very excited when reading it and I loved it. So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roxana, for this. And we have Melissa as well. Please.
I wanted to ask if there was any point in your story that you felt like the characters took a life of their own and drove the story in a way you didn't plan initially.
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, A Far Wilder Magic is an interesting book in that the characters, like not all books are like this, but for this one, they immediately seemed to almost talk to me. So in a way, writing that book was just kind of transcribing what they were telling me in a way. And I'm trying to think if the story ever took any unexpected turns. I mean, honestly, not that I remember, but it's been a really long time. I wrote that book, I think, in 2019. But I can tell you that I don't really plan dialogue or anything. Like I plan generally what's going to happen in a scene, but I think probably Wes in particular, the things that would come out of his mouth always kind of surprised me. So yeah, it can happen that the characters will kind of take over and you'll have to wrestle them back into some kind of structure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Allison. Thank you, Melissa. We already have a question in the chat as well. So, do you have a writing routine, and how do you keep yourself organized and motivated to write?
I wish that I had a writing routine, but I really don't. I find I tend to work a little bit better in the morning when my brain is kind of fresh and just kind of chores and stuff haven't bogged me down. But for staying motivated and organized, I am an outliner. So it's not super detailed. I would say that there's maybe one sentence describing what's going to happen in each scene. But I always say that I'm kind of a bad outliner, that even when I have a plan, it never really goes exactly as I planned. As I was saying earlier, the characters sometimes will just say something or will tell me that the story wants to go in a slightly different direction. But I do find that it's helpful to at least know what I'm trying to do each day so that I'm not showing up to my Word document, staring at a blank page and like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? So outlining gives me some structure. Even if my routine isn't structured, I know what I need to accomplish each day. Because when I'm drafting, I do try to write every day about 2,000 words. And my first drafts are very bare bones, like super basic, like a screenplay almost, like he walks outside. It was dark. Hello, he said. So I'll kind of get like a complete scene each day and have some structure that way. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. It was a little rambly.
Yeah, this was the answer for Adina. We have a heart from her, so we're supposed to happy with it, Allison. We're good. We can go on with a question from Roxana. So she says, I also really loved A Fragile Enchantment, and I loved how fashion isn't just aesthetic, it's woven into the magic system itself. How did you develop the concept of enchanted clothing? And were there any real world fashion inspirations or historical periods you drew from?
Yes, I love this question. So a funny thing about that book is originally it was kind of a 1930s like Hollywood setting. And Neve was a glass blower because I took some glass blowing classes in college and I really loved it. But I turned this concept into my agents and they were like, we're not really sure about the glass blowing thing or really like that time period. So can you just, we love the plot though, but can you just kind of change the set dressing? And they suggested dressmaking, which I thought was really lovely. So I ran with it. But when I was thinking about making changes to the book based on that suggestion, I was like, okay, 1930s could be interesting, but wouldn't it be even more fun to put it in a period in history when, in my humble opinion, I think the fashion was incredible, which is the Regency era. And also in this era where clothing conferred so much, like social status, they would change outfits like 3 to 4 times a day. There were so many little details that went into clothing. So yes, to answer your question, the real world fashion inspirations were absolutely from the Regency period, and there is a treasure trove of images online where you can see real fashion plates that were printed at the time in advertisements. A lot of them came out of France. They're fantastic. I had so much fun looking at all of them and describing them.
Roxana, anything else to add?
Thank you for the answer. I did not know the plot of the book when I started it, and I was incredibly taken by surprise by this element, and it was like being high, honestly, all those scenes where you described how she made the clothes and how they turned into magic and how they looked on the prince himself. So I always think about it. Sometimes weekly, it just comes back to me, and I wonder, wow, that's such great writing. So thank you.
Much.
Thank you so much for the question and for this answer. And I was actually thinking, and I'm gonna keep talking, guys, so that I can give you a chance to think about getting the courage to interact directly with Allison, or just write a lot of questions or reactions in the chat. So I was thinking, because we just talked about A Fragile Enchantment, that somehow I think the topics of your books, of the books that already have been published and the books who are to be published, are very different from each other, and they seem to be drawn from very various sources of inspiration. So how do you choose what inspires you? What gives you this sparkle? Oh, I want to write about this thing.
That's a tough question. I do try to do something different with every book that I write, just to kind of keep myself interested. But I think usually my ideas always start with characters. And in particular, since I write kind of romance forward stories, that inspiration is always coming from a pair of characters. So usually I'll know that an idea has legs, or is viable if I can articulate who the leads are, how they meet, and what is the thing that kind of forces them together. And usually once I have those things sketched out, I can kind of slot them into a setting. So for example, my first book, Down Comes the Night, I was really interested in this like kind of claustrophobic setting where these two enemies were snowed in together in a big house. And I'm like, well, obviously that feels very gothic. So I need to lean into like the Victorian elements. For A Far Wilder Magic, I had these two outcasts. And I thought, since both of them kind of are religious and ethnic minorities, I thought it would be cool to kind of explore America in the early 20th century. So things like that. I just kind of look at the inherent tensions in the dynamic that I've chosen and try to think of what setting might throw that into stark relief or complicate things, or stuff like that, yeah.
This seems to be very interesting somehow, because it's a process that I don't think I've very often met, to have this sort of spark or detail or interesting concept, and then to start thinking about what would go with it, and where should I set up my scene and everything. So to me, this is quite a different way of thinking about things, if I'm getting myself well understood. So it's quite fascinating. It's like having all the clues from Cluedo and putting them together somehow.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I always love hearing about different people's processes. I have friends who are very much like setting is first, and other people where the plot is first. But yeah, for me, it's kind of reverse engineering from like the smallest part outward.
Yeah, that's quite fascinating actually. I have to process this for a bit. Roxana, you're just in time to save me. I was about to voice the question that we have in the chat, but I'll give you the floor and then I'll voice it, please.
Thank you. Because you talked about the characters, I remembered that you posted a few days ago some mood boards for the characters of your upcoming book, which, by the way, we're very excited for. And I really liked that. It was so aesthetic and it made me so curious. And I would like to know which one of them is your favorite, if you can choose.
Asking me to choose my favorite child? Gosh, well, I think it's the two leads, Lorelai and Sylvia. Like, Lorelai is the protagonist, and I love her because she's a very different protagonist from all of the other ones I've written, like Neve in particular, but also Ren and Margaret to different extents are quite squishy inside, even though they have kind of different ways of presenting externally. But Lorelai is just all thorns, so bitter, so resentful, so mean and hostile. And like everyone she interacts with is just like jabbing at them. It was so much fun to write, which I don't know, it was very cathartic for me because I am just not like that at all. So it was an interesting experiment. But her love interest, Sylvia, is very sunshiny and whimsical and isn't the world magical? Like I always like to describe her as the fantasy version of Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter. She just is very taken with the world and puts herself in these dangerous situations. But the danger is almost what enchants her. It's like this deep respect for everything she encounters, which was also a very fun point of view to inhabit. So yeah, I'll say that the two romantic leads are my favorites in that book.
Thank you. I can't wait to read the book. Thank you.
Thanks.
And I think we also have a hand up from Mariuka.
Go with the Instagram question. I can wait. It's fine.
All right, fine. So I'm going to take the question from Instagram. It says, if you could change something about one of your books, what would you change and in which book?
That's an interesting question. So I think I wouldn't change anything about them because I think with writing, especially when you're traditionally published, like the book that is on shelves, by the time you read it, I wrote it maybe like 2 to 2.5 years ago. So in a way, each book is kind of this moment or version of myself preserved, like as if a fossil in amber. And if I were to go back to any of my books and change them, I would write all of them completely differently because I'm a completely different person than I was when I first wrote it. So it would be an exercise in like madness of trying to make something perfect to how I feel right now. Yeah. At the same time, I'm like, man, if I could go back, what would I change? I mean, like maybe with my debut novel, I would tighten up the pacing a little bit. But other than that, I honestly think I'm pretty happy with how all of them turned out. It was the best I could do at that time. And I think the imperfections of that is kind of beautiful.
Thinking about favorite children and which things I want to change about them. Difficult, very difficult. Mariuka, do you want to ask now?
Yes, now it's fine. Since Roxana made me read your book going, it's a Roy and Riza fanfic. Like, okay. And since my main job is manga, I feel it's my job also to ask you what anime or manga series you're enjoying right now for all the weebs in the chat room right now.
People, yes. So I am enjoying right now Demon Slayer. I think like everybody. I did watch JJK, but I think I need a break because I'm so delicate, and it's so painful right now that I'm like, my kids are all doing so badly. But it is an incredible series. I think that's it right now. I unfortunately just haven't had a ton of time to read or watch much lately. But funny enough, I was always very much a shonen person growing up. But for the first time, maybe last year, no, a couple years ago now, because it was a big influence on A Fragile Enchantment, I watched the remake of Fruits Basket. And that was like my first experience with it ever, like as an adult. And I'm like, oh man, if I had this as a teenager, I don't know, that would have like fundamentally changed me as a person. But now it's like, oh, what a delightful series.
For me, Full Metal Alchemist was that series that fundamentally changed me. I feel like I grew up with it, and the equivalent exchange idea is so ingrained in my mentality right now that everything I do is like with that thought first. Like, is it equivalent exchange? Okay.
If it's not,
Exactly. Like,
yes, that's, I think Full Metal Alchemist is my absolute favorite of all time. So good, so good.
And only now was it taken down from the first spot on my anime list by Freerun.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Even the Full Metal Alchemist fans decided that Freerun was good enough to stay on the top spot without changing anything. Like, okay, you're worthy.
All right, I have to check that out then.
Thank you so much for your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for animating this anime discussion. So I'm gonna go back to the chat now because it's been slowly filling with questions. We have this other question coming from Instagram, where we are currently live. Talking about your new book, I love the title, A Dark and Browning Tide, suggests a dark story filled with tension and foreboding. How did you come up with this title, and how does it reflect the overall mood of the book?
A great question. Titles are funny. I didn't actually name this one, my agents did. I actually did not have a title for this book for like 3 years. At first, I was calling it Vespertine, and then Margaret Rogerson published a book called Vespertine, and I was like, ah! So I had to change it, but I didn't have a good substitute. So I think it was literally the day before we took this book out to try to sell it, my agents were like, I don't know, what about A Dark and Drowning Tide? And I was like, yeah, sounds great, let's go with that. But I appreciate very much that you like the title. I do think it fits. It just kind of, the book is a very watery book. It is set on a riverboat for the most part, although we do have some detours to mountains and spooky woods. The magic system is water-based. If you've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, it kind of has like a waterbending sort of vibe. And the goal of the expedition is to find a magical spring, which is said to be the source of all magic in the world. So I think the title just kind of hits on both the spooky, dark, fairy tale vibe, but also kind of gets at the water imagery that kind of flows, if you will, throughout the book.
There you go. I had a couple of questions in mind about your next book as well, but I'm just going to keep them for a bit more because we have 2 hands up at the moment, and I'm going to give them the floor. So first we go to Melly, please.
I wanted to ask how you managed to balance the romance plot, which is beautiful, by the way, in Fragile Enchantment, with all the fantasy elements and the world building.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. I like to, I mean, similar to my earlier answer about how I identify settings, I like to kind of start with the characters and build the world and the magic system around them. So A Fragile Enchantment is a little bit different from my others in that I kind of knew going in that I wanted the magic to kind of be like an exploration of like the fleetingness of art and that feeling that I think all of us have that we want to do something meaningful before it's too late. So I wanted a magic system that was artistic, but like almost impermanent. So originally it was glass, but fashion also is kind of this thing that's constantly changing or constantly out of fashion, if you will. So with that in mind, I kind of build the romance around that. So Neve is a person who is so worried about dying young and never achieving anything, and just worrying that her time is running out. And Kit is kind of just the exact opposite in a lot of ways. Like he does not care what people think about him. He does not care about making people happy. And his magic kind of came out of that too. Like he's such a thorny person that I thought like having a magic that was like literal thorns was kind of cute. So for that book, I kind of, all of the magic came, it's an expression of the characters' inner selves. So I think if you're writing romantic fantasy, like I do, romance is always kind of going to be the most important thing, and the world building elements I like to think of just kind of supporting that core relationship. Like I keep talking about Down Comes the Night, which is not out in Romanian, but it's similar. Like the romance was like it's a magical doctor and her patient, and she has to heal him. So the world building is all about like forcing them together, and the magic is kind of the thing that joins them. I hope that answers your question. I think it's really just about like thinking about romance as the foundational thing, or whatever you feel is the foundational thing, and then making choices that support and accentuate what matters the most to you.
Thank you. I think it's very interesting, your thought process.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you from me as well. And we also have Alexia with her hand up now.
Hi, so I have a couple of questions. The first one is if you have the opportunity to live in one of your books, which one would you choose?
Oh, which one would I choose? Probably, I think A Fragile Enchantment's world is probably the safest one. So we're gonna go with that. And I also just love Regency gowns, so I think being able to live my best gown and ball lifestyle would be fun.
Okay, I see that. And I want to ask you about the book that is going to come out in 2025.
Mhm.
That's Wings of Starlight, right?
Yeah.
And how sad it's going to be, or you know what I mean? Like on a scale from 1 to 10.
Okay, a question for you. Did you grow up with the Tinkerbell movies?
Yes.
Okay, so unfortunately, I think that it's gonna be kind of sad. I like maybe an 8, maybe a 7. I think the ending is kind of bittersweet. Like it's, you know how it's gonna end. We all do. I think the journey there is painful, but I think there is a little bit of hope at the end. But I did make myself cry writing it, so take that as you will.
And how did you find out they were going to write it? Like, how did it happen to end
Yeah,
up to write on it?
yeah, it's an interesting process. It was new for me as well. So Disney approached me and said, "Hey, we have this concept and we would love for you to work on it. Are you interested?" And I said, "Yeah, I am interested." So they kind of gave me a very loose plot, kind of the thing that you would see on the back of a book jacket. And then I was given the opportunity to flesh out all of the details. So I made a lot of decisions about characters and what exactly would happen. I just had like a few guidelines. But I will say that working on IP, intellectual property, is much more collaborative than working on your original stuff. So there are tons of people on the team who all have input, and it's like really interesting to kind of balance everybody's inputs, and but it also feels like you're not alone. Like a lot of writing is very lonely, but with this type of project, you have so much support and so many people invested in the project. So it was cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh my God, there's so much emotion right now after these questions and answers and everything. Oh, okay. Deep breath, everyone. I'm going to take a question which is perhaps lighter, let's say, or maybe not, from the chat. So we have this question which says, you have been blessed by the book covers gods for all your books. How much influence did you have on the creative process and the final version? Do you get to work with the artists since your covers match the characters' descriptions so beautifully?
Well, first of all, thank you. I am biased, but I agree. I've been very lucky to have such beautiful covers. A thing about traditional publishing is that you give up a lot of control, but at the same time, like all of my publishers have been fantastic in that they are very, they keep me very involved and they want me to be happy. So I would say I had a decent amount of influence on the final cover direction for my books. Usually I send my art design team like a Pinterest board with some general vibes, character descriptions, like if I have any specific ideas about the composition, things like that. But ultimately it is the art director who is going out and interacting with the artist and directing them. And then typically my designer will come back with a sketch and be like, here's what we're thinking. Do you like it? Do you have any feedback? And we kind of go from there. But honestly, my past, actually, yeah, all of my covers, they've sent me them and they've been like, here it is. Do you like it? Any changes? And I'm like, nope, it's beautiful. Keep on going. So I've been very lucky in that regard.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And I have to say that I totally agree with MM who asked this question, because I also love the covers a lot, all their versions, I think. But yeah, very biased. So we have a quick message from Melly. Unfortunately, she has to leave now, but she wants to say that she loves your books and you inspire her a lot.
Oh, thank you so much, Melly. I appreciate you.
There you go. Thank you. I will move to Adina's question. What are some of your favorite books at the moment?
Ooh, so I'm kind of living in the future in that a lot of books that I'm reading right now don't come out until 2025. But some favorites of mine that are already out are Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. That is like one of my top 5 books of all time. It's so good. If you haven't read it, please check it out. I love all of Margaret Rogerson's books. She is very inspiring to me. I love C.L. Polk's The Midnight Bargain, which is another Regency fantasy about a woman who wants to be a magician and makes a deal with a spirit of fortune who just like causes all sorts of problems for her. It's very whimsical, a little bit darker toward the end, but I don't know, still well worth a read. So I think the theme for me is I'm really drawn to more whimsical stories these days.
I think that goes very well with the other question that we have in the chat at the moment. As I was mentioning at the beginning of our conversation, we had Ava read on Monday for the same online and not only festival. So she mentioned you. She said that you are a good friend and you've been supporting each other. for quite a lot of years now. So we have this question because she told us which of your books is her favorite. So what is your favorite Ava Reid book?
That is another like, how do I choose between my favorite children? I love all of Ava's books, and I feel like she and I are similar in that all of hers are so different from each other, but there's still like a fundamental like Ava Reidness to each of them. I have a really soft spot in my heart for The Wolf and the Woodsman, which is her debut book. I think partially because it is what started our friendship. I don't know if she's told this story to y'all, but we actually lived in the same apartment building, and I had broken my ankle at the time and maybe had posted about it on Twitter or Instagram, and we were vaguely aware that we were both in the same town. But one day I walked out of my apartment on crutches and was making my way to the elevator, and down the hall another door opened and Ava walked out, and we kind of like stared across the hall at each other for like 10 seconds, and she was like, "Allison?" And I said, "Ava?" And that was the beginning of our friendship. We swapped books and have been friends and critique partners ever since. So yeah, Wolf and the Woodsman is probably my favorite, but I did just finish Fable for the End of the World, and y'all are in for a treat. It is so good.
Thank you for this. Actually, she hasn't shared this story with us, so it's I was like mesmerized because you're just like describing a scene of a series or something like that. You know, I could just picture the two of you.
It was our romantic comedy.
Exactly. One of those moments, you know, with music and everything and birds chirping and everything, and it's like amazing. Just amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. Alexia, you have your hand up.
So I have two more questions. And one of them is, if you will work with Disney again, or if you want to work with Disney again, what story would you choose to like write, or you hope to get?
So I'm not working with them on anything else as of right now. Never say never, but my publishing schedule is a little crazy at the moment. But if I could write another book for them in the Tinkerbell world, I would want to write the Vidya book. I love her so much. I just love a mean character. I don't know what this says about me, but yeah.
I love her too, and my friend said that I'm a weird person because I love her.
No, you have good taste. Do not listen to your friend.
It's true, and she's watching on Instagram, and I'm so happy that you like her.
Well, we can be weird together, maybe. I don't know.
And do you have any, I don't know, suggestions for young authors, or I don't know how to say. I'm writing my second book. I'm so scared. I'm writing it like over like 2 years now.
Oh, that's amazing.
But I'm so scared of like going into the story. I know the story. I know how many books are going to be in the series, but I don't know, I'm scared to go for it.
Yeah, that's real. I think that's something, I mean, if it helps to hear, like I'm about to start on a new book and I'm terrified. I'm terrified. Every time I think all of us have to go through this, like, what am I doing? Oh my gosh, a kitty, so cute. But what am I doing? Like, is this right? Is anyone gonna like this? Etc. Any kind of thought. But those thoughts aren't helpful. I don't know if I have any like practical advice, but you're doing it. Like, you're writing the book. I think finishing it is number one priority, and as much as you can, just hold on to that feeling you had when you first had the idea. I think that is it, is like, what drew you to this story? Why is it important to you? That's going to be your North Star, the thing that kind of carries you to the end of a project. And as long as you hold on to that, like you can push through self-doubt. Sometimes it'll be hard, because writing is work sometimes, and sometimes it's magical, and that's great. But on the days it's hard, like, don't get discouraged. And I don't know. I mean, I think that all stories have their audience, so somebody needs to hear what you have to say. So that is what I would say to you. The fear is normal, but you can do it.
Thank you so, so much.
You're welcome. Good luck. I'm very excited to see your book on shelf someday.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, Allison, and thank you, Alexia, for having had the courage to share this with us. I just want to remind you guys that we have 10 more minutes in Allison's lovely company. So this is the best time for you to decide if you want to ask her something or if you want to share something with her. Questions, curiosities, comments, feedback, whatever you feel like offering her or asking her, this is the right time to do it. And as I usually say, I encourage you interacting directly with her. But if not, you still have the chat open. You can still write your questions or remarks over there, please. And at the same time, I've been hearing a lot of things going on here, and I have to say I'm a fan of this conversation that we're having. I think there's a lot of congeniality and a lot of, feeling of mutual support in this, and I'm really grateful for what's going on. But I had a different kind of curiosity now, Allison, for you, because I think I read in an interview of yours that you're into acrobatics and you're doing pole and air something that really blew my mind, and I was like, what is this girl doing? So what are you doing exactly?
What am I doing? So I don't have y'all seen Cirque du Soleil with like the fabric? That's like what I do. I do aerial silks and hammock, which is the same material as silk, but instead of like hanging down like a curtain, it's a loop that you spin around really fast in and make shapes. Yeah, that my secondary artistic expression is movement. So I do circus, and I just started ballet, which is actually the hardest thing ever. Like, if any of y'all do ballet, you are so powerful. Who knew? But yeah. So I like having something that has nothing to do with writing that still allows me to be creative in some way.
Mariuka is asking you if you're living your Kaleido Star dream.
What is Kaleido Star?
It's an anime that it's all in a circus, and the main character did all the acrobatics like silks and trapeze and everything else, and it's like the
Okay,
best thing ever.
this anime was made for me, so I must watch this.
Yes.
And we have Roxana also joining the Bandcamp.
Yeah, it's me again. But I'm taking this chance because who knows if I'll get to chat with you ever again. And I wanted to say that you are one of my favorite authors, and it's nice to see that you're also an amazing person. So I just wanted to say that we'll keep supporting you here at Cărturești, and I hope that Trei Publishing House will translate all of your books so we can recommend them to everyone. And as a final question, so we can get on this subject as well, because I think everyone is curious. I wondered, what kind of music do you listen to? What artists do you like? If you want to share your favorites with us.
Oh goodness. My music taste. What am I listening to these days? My partner is really into like what is it called? Power pop. So I listen to a lot of like Cotton Mather, Big Star, The Replacements. Like I like, my music taste is like a 50-year-old man's, to be honest with you. Like I listen to a lot of classic rock. But also, I mean, who else do I love? I mean, it's controversial. I do love the 1975. I'm sorry.
I love them too. I get you. I love them.
Um, I actually started listening to I did finish listening to the new Sabrina Carpenter album. I loved that. Um, oh my gosh, what else? I just kind of like, a fact about me that upsets a lot of people is one, I write on Google Docs, and two, I listen to music on YouTube instead of Spotify. I know, but so a lot of the time I'll just like let YouTube queue up whatever it will for me. And it's kind of bad about recommending me new things. So a lot of the time I just listen to the same playlist over and over again.
That's very relatable. Thank you.
Yeah, plus one over here, since I'm a Deezer fan and not a Spotify fan, but yeah, who cares? Anyway, it's very lovely to hear about that, and thank you, Roxana, for asking. As you might have noticed, I do like to talk a lot about peculiarities, if you want to name them like this. And I do have my final question, if you wish, Allison. What would you say it's the most peculiar thing about yourself?
Oh, what is the weirdest thing about me? This is a hard question. I'm like sweating. I'm like, what facts do I even know about myself? I mean, I definitely think like writing wise, like definitely the people love Scrivener. I just have never been able to get into it. So I love the comfort of my Google Docs. What else? I mean, like all of the things I'm thinking about, I'm like, I feel like circus is the weirdest thing about me, but I feel like these aren't satisfying answers though. I might have to get back to you on this one.
Okay, I'll make sure I'm writing to you on Instagram once we are done here, and let you know that, listen, you know, have something to give me, huh? So once I have the correct answer,
Yes,
I
no,
can,
I'm
I can,
feeling
I can share.
in my work, I'm very inspired by like Jane Austen and George Eliot, who I feel like are the masters of just identifying the like smallest peculiarities in people. And I just really respect that artistically, and I try to embody that same sensibility when designing characters. Like, what's the weirdest guy that I could make and convince people to like them? So
There you go. I think that also somehow describes very well what you're managing to do with your characters in your books. And I really want to join here the team of Cărturești, and hope that we will have more translations after your books, and that you'll keep reading them. Yeah, I see that Laura is nodding there.
We will. We're taking them one by one, but I love Allison's all books. I'm reading them in advance, so I'm very excited to publish each one, to have it translated and so on. Yeah, but we will. She's one of my favorite authors, and one of my first choices in this collection. When I got the job, she was one of the first authors I fell in love with. Yeah, so not to worry, we'll have more.
Good, 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 good. We are here, warm on our seats, looking forward to what's next. Great. Oh my God, guys. Great timing, great performance. Thank you, everyone who finally got the courage to interact directly with Allison and to leave questions or feedback or anything else in the chat. Once again, I'm voicing my own opinion that I'm very much into Allison's books, and I do hope to read more and more of hers. And I would like to give the floor in the end to our guest author. I don't know, Allison, if you have any sort of inspiration to perhaps leave any sort of message for your fans over here in Romania. Well, between brackets, I'm in Budapest, but anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm still Romanian, so I'm a fan from Romania. So if you have any sort of message for your readers, this is the right moment to voice it.
Oh my goodness. Well, I am so incredibly honored and grateful that y'all gave me the opportunity to meet some of my readers today. I mean, it's a rare thing as an author to get to encounter our readers face to face. I mean, as much as this is face to face, and it was a really special experience. I appreciate y'all so much for your support, so much love. Like, I do this for y'all. There's a Kazuo Ishiguro quote that's like, writing is this act of like, this is how the world feels to me. Does it feel like this to you as well? And so my books are for you. And if you're a writer out there, yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, write the book only you can write. Embrace your weirdness, especially if you're a young writer. It can feel so hard to be weird, but that is what makes you beautiful and unique, and that is what makes your art beautiful and relatable to others. So that, I will stop myself there.
Thank you so much, Allison. I'm sure that these words will stay with us for a long time. And just for the official ending, I don't know if Mariuka, Roxana would like to say anything. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. I think Roxana will agree that this meeting in particular felt like it was a meeting for us. We were like very excited, and good luck.
Thank you.
And I hope you come with more books. Thank you to the publisher and Laura for being such a fighter to bring all the books here. And we are definitely going to wait for them. So now everyone, if you want to say a goodbye and thank you, it would be amazing. Like,
Thank you so
we can do
much.
it. Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So fun.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.